Hello everyone, and welcome back for another Yang workout. And this month I am hopping on the Pilates bandwagon. Pilates is everywhere again. It's a craze again. And that means that some people will dismiss it and go, oh, it's just another trend. But there are benefits to it. It gets you out and moving. It gets people trying something new. Trends will come and go, and you can always ride the wave if that's fun for you to get some variety in your life. So I'm gonna forego Ayurveda and seasonal changes and all that sort of stuff this month because sometimes we should just be moving our bodies without overanalyzing it. Although I won't let you get away that easily, that quickly. I do wanna give a little bit of chit chat about the therapeutic benefits of Pilates. Even if you don't know this, it will still be working, but I think it's good to highlight these things so as you're moving through your practice, you can feel, oh yeah, that's what's working, that's what's happening, this is going on. So, okay, what is happening with Pilates? So I did my Pilates training maybe a little over a decade ago, and I had a teacher teaching the workshop. And I also had a mentor at work, and both of them had actually done their traditional Pilates training. They'd both studied classical Pilates. There's classical and contemporary Pilates is more like fitness class based a lot of the time. They're not sticking to the original workouts. They're drawing in a lot of creative inspiration, which I think is great because what was Joseph Pilates doing? He was just making it up. So let's just make it up. Today, of course, we'll do a yoga-inspired Pilates practice because I'm just making it up. So look forward to a fusion workout this summer if you like this kind of newfangled practice. If you are a purist about what Pilates and other movement styles should be, my apologies in advance. But okay, the value of Pilates, classical Pilates or contemporary Pilates, a few different things. One of the main benefits of yoga and Pilates and anything where we're moving our body in different sorts of shapes, directions, patterns, is that we rewrite movement patterns. So my teachers both did therapeutic kind of rehab Pilates, especially after people had had injury. And injury is a great example, although it shows up as repetitive strain or stress or other kind of holding patterns that we get. But let's say I had this injury, and this is real. I had an injury to my left shoulder, and for so long, I was kind of stuck, like bracing. And one of the values of yoga and Pilates, and in yoga we call it our samskaras, our habit patterns, is that we can analyze how we're moving through space. So I have this mind-body awareness of like, oh, I realized since I injured my shoulder, I'm kind of stuck holding, bracing. My body is trying to protect itself. And there is a positive underlying value to that, but there's also going to be sort of a stuckness, limited movement, so that through breath practices and safe range of motion exploration, we can start to open that up, explore these habit patterns, and then lay down a fresh blueprint for new habit patterns. Yoga, Pilates, any movement practice, it's all good. It's just one of the main benefits of yoga and Pilates that we move into all these different shapes, all sorts of wonky patterns a lot of the time. And as a result, I mean, in this case, my shoulder, I can then see, oh yeah, this feels tight, but this feels more open. It feels good when I do that. Doesn't feel good when I do that. And then over time, have new habit patterns so that you can see people who do practices of the physical body, doesn't matter what it is, they kind of hold themselves differently because they have developed a positive habit. If we are unconscious of our habits, that's where we get stuck in, this kind of thing, we get tech neck, whatever. So I hope for you out there today that we can start to rewire some positive habit patterns, which leads me to my next benefit of Pilates, is that so much of it is posture based. I think especially as we're coming out of the winter, we get stuck in this kind of hunkered down holding pattern posture. And there's this feedback loop between body and mood that if we act hunkered down like this, that we can feel kind of mood-wise down. So today we'll do posture-based practices to get us more uplifted. The other thing that works with this uplifted posture is Pilates style breathing. And it can be called reverse breathing sometimes compared to yoga. So in yoga, where we would normally inhale and then exhale, in Pilates, it's the reverse. We would exhale and then inhale. This is a great challenge for our coordination, keeps the brain young. New habit pattern, but also it's rib cage based breathing. So we keep our abs strong, we expand the rib cage, and it can give this uplifted kind of feeling. Now let's remember, yoga and Pilates are not fighting against one another. Joseph Pilates was a yoga teacher. So a lot of this is yoga based. It just leans more on certain yoga practices that become convention in Pilates. Yoga leans differently in different practices that become convention in yoga, but just because they're conventional doesn't mean they're the whole story. So you'll see a lot of overlap. In other words, take what you like, leave what you don't. Okay, our essential oil for this month, I'm thinking April showers brings May flowers, geranium and grapefruit. A little bit of citrus, a little bit of floral. They're both pretty punchy, peppy, zesty smells. And as we so often do, we can put a drop of each. If you make an essential oil blend, like for a roller, and dilute it, I would say citrus can be quite irritating to a lot of people. Go a little heavy on diluting it. And maybe a 3-to-1 ratio, grapefruit to geranium. Not everybody likes geranium, it can be a bit strong. And if this is a really strong blend for you, instead of grapefruit and geranium, maybe bergamot and geranium. 5-to-1 ratio. So we still get that springy, floral, peppy, but not overwhelming. I know I love the overwhelming essential oils. And for some people, it just gives them that like, oh, okay, it's too much. Please tone it down a bit. If you feel you need to tone it down, instead of grapefruit, bergamot's a little kinder. And if you're making a roller, really dilute it because citrus can be quite irritating. So I've put a drop of each on my tissue. And then, so the smell is close at hand, close at nose. I'm just gonna put it on the back of my chair so it is nearby for the practice. Our tea for today is not a tea at all. It is a very large mug of soup broth, bone broth, another trend we are having. And I think it's great before a Pilates style workout because we should be eating something, but anything too heavy as we're doing movements of our spine, twisting and that kind of thing, can be uncomfortable for digestion. Lying on the stomach, not ideal after we've had a huge meal. And also at this time of year, hydrating, we're starting to sweat more as the temperature picks up, and the salt will help with that. Keep in mind, I don't know if you're on a salt restricted diet, you are the boss of yourself, but bone broth is a great way to get a little bit of nutrition in before we move, so we're topped up without sloshing or overflowing. You can sip as you go, or have it half an hour beforehand, something like that, so that you can feel sustained throughout your practice. Okay, my thoughts on movement and equipment for today. So I have my chair. Feel free to modify anything to be seated at any point. We're aiming for the basic idea of breath, control from the core, expanding the ribs, and moving our bodies into different shapes while being aware of our movement patterns. If you have all of those elements, sit in a chair, sit on the floor, stand, jump around the house, whatever you need to do to make the movements comfortable for you. I usually shy away from these things, but lately 99% of my clients have told me that they have these at home. So you may have some sort of resistance or a stretchy band, TheraBand, there are lots of different brands, but what they do as the name suggests, is offer resistance. So I'm developing my proprioception, my mind-body connection, awareness of where my body and limbs are in space. If my arm is just flopping around, it's hard for me to do that. But if I can resist or add resistance with the resistance band, it's a lot of feedback for my muscles and my different support systems, so the brain can figure out, oh, that's how much muscular tension I need. That's where my limbs are. We have the circle style. We have the TheraBand style. There's the style with the handles on the end that's like more tube style. Whatever you have that gives that feeling of resistance. A yoga strap, an old towel, from your house coat, the strap would work fine for that as well. If you have an old pair of yoga pants and you want to like cut the leg up so that you have a little bit of something, anything that we have that we can pull against to add resistance. So it doesn't have to be fancy. The other thing we have is a broomstick. If you have a broom handle, that's another option. Same idea. With our broomstick, we pull against it instead of just flopping around. I'm pulling my hands away from one another as I'm moving so that you'll feel your muscles kick in. Okay, let's talk about our chair. So those are our tools. Feel free to alternate between them or modify as necessary. We won't be using them too much today in case you don't have anything. I don't want to overdo it. But we will need a chair to help with comfort, sitting instead of standing, like I said, or to help with balance as we go through some movements that will challenge our balance. I like to put it off to one side so you can see what I am doing. If you can see me better, if you put the chair between me and you, feel free to do that. Obviously, it just makes sense. You can't see. We will have some options to do movements standing, and I will show it standing the first time through, and then kneeling, same kind of shape, but now we're on the floor. So feel free to stay standing for that. And then on all fours, we can be on all fours, we can be lying on our stomachs, or we can be doing the same type of movement using the chair for support. Okay, that's a lot up top. Let's get going. We will start standing or seated on the chair. Your choice. We'll have a couple moments to just shake out my lecture from our minds and come into ourselves. But before we do, usually the easiest way to have our tool close at hand, if you are seated, is in behind the chair. And if you are standing and you have a chair close by, then you can also just use the chair to hold your props or your tools. For sake of ease today, I'm gonna stick to one, but please approximate whether you have the loop style or a broomstick or a yoga strap. And let's start finding neutral in our spines. All right, so we'll start in our usual mountain pose, as we always start, or Pilates language, neutral standing. My apologies for whatever style of language you know. I'm gonna stick to our yoga language since that's what I typically use here to keep it consistent for all of you, my viewers. Spreading our fingers, spreading our toes to help us engage muscular energy through arms and legs. And then we'll take our hands to our hips to assess whether our hips are shifted forward, shifted back. Sometimes we tend to pop one side, tucked under, or popped back. Trying to find neutral through the pelvis. Giving it some movement around can help us find that place to land. Bending our knees a little bit more than we think we need to can help, or rocking through the feet to feel grounded, balanced, stable in the lower body. We'll take our hands to our bellies when we're ready, and let's fully exhale. Really emptying out. Fully filling, and then again, really emptying out, and that should help us feel our abdominal muscles kick in. Our deepest abdominal muscles assist with that pushing out. We'll aim to lock our core muscles in. So we're drawing up through our core and in as though we are shrink wrapping our internal organs, or maybe imagining that we've taken a length of cloth or our resistance band and kind of wrapped ourselves up so we're really held. Our abdominal muscles are our internal corsetry. We take the hands up higher and again try to find neutral in the rib cage. So we're controlling from our core. Our ribs have to expand for us to breathe. And then noticing whether we're kind of slumped forward, popped up, sort of dropped in our posture, and lifting tall. There's that classic, as though a string is pulling us up from our breastbone. In yoga classes, we tend to go more for a back bend type of posture. Let's take our ribs and draw them towards one another in the front, kind of knitting everything together, wrapping together to enhance this effect of our internal structures of our abs so that our ribs aren't flaring open but locked in. This feels very unnatural for me as a yoga teacher, so if it feels unnatural for you, it's just something to work with, right? Remember our habit patterns. If we're too popped up, our breath might be shallow in the chest. So if we pull down just a bit and then keep our hands on our ribs, hopefully we can feel that we're really locked in through our core, our low back, sides of the waist, but the ribs have this intense freedom to expand with each breath. So this is what we call our three-dimensional breathing. Rib cage expanding front, sides, and back. Might feel like a real push to expand our rib cage. Sometimes the torso is described as an accordion sitting on top of a water balloon. So we're kind of hugging the water balloon and letting the accordion really expand. We can take our fingertips to our shoulders next. Roll shoulders back and down. Neck is long. Let's take our hands and stretch down again in a very tall, upright posture. And we'll pause for a moment here, turning our attention inward. Let's take a few rounds of breath, full expansion of the ribs, feeling the ribs press out into the underarms, into the inside of the arms, and full exhalation. And this already starts to turn on our Pilates zest, this really zestful breathing. Let's get moving with our usual circle sweeps, but this time we'll stay knitted down in the ribs, but we can lift the chin a bit as we go. So instead of our big back bend circle sweep, we'll be contained in our abdominal muscles. Let's inhale to get ready. And then we exhale as we lift tall to knit those ribs together in the front. Okay, let's do another one here. Inhale to get ready. And then with our exhale, big sweep up and around to kickstart those abs. We'll do one more. Feel free to do a pursed lip exhale at any time. That can help with the mind-body connection, help to fire up our abs. And then let's take 2 fingers to our chin. Noticing if the head is kind of pushing forward, we could also test it with the back of the neck, aiming for a sleek, smooth back of the neck. So we can use our 2 fingers on our chin to draw back. And for some of us, especially if you're kind of craning forward to see me, it might be a good pointer to pull back so that you can see your 2 fingers, and then let's call that neutral. So now we have our tall posture. Let's grab our strap. Yes, you can do it with a broom handle. Yes, you can do it with nothing. Yes, you can stay seated. But now that we have our breath and our neutral posture warmed up, let's challenge our movement with some resistance. So again, we will inhale to get ready. Exhale to really squeeze the abs in. As we pull the strap apart, take it to the top, and then release. So we can inhale here, exhale up overhead, knitting those ribs down. So In other words, everything is a deep internal abdominal exercise, but we use the breath and move our limbs to challenge that. Now, what if you're doing the breath opposite from me, inhaling up, exhaling down? Totally fine. All right, we'll do our lateral flexion. Depending on your level of comfort, we can keep the strap or get rid of it entirely. So let's see how we do with it. And if you're not a fan, we can just drop the arms, drop the strap, and do it without. But our idea with it is that we inhale up and then exhale, squeezing to one side using our abs. Inhale up, exhale, squeezing to the other side. So we're shortening one side at a time, again, crunching through the sides. And like many things, we might become lightheaded, dizzy, feel kind of funky. We can drop the breath and breathe in a more comfortable way. Give it a couple more each way if we can. Keeping our knees soft. Again, focusing the movement on the ribs, so we're doing a lot of work with that accordion of our rib cage. Pulling the hands away from one another. And then we're coming back through center. And now we can release. Kind of shake that out however it feels good. We might like to do a little standing cat and cow, reaching forward and then releasing. And our cat and cow in Pilates is the same as yoga. We inhale as we lift the chest and then exhale as we reach forward. So we just did a lot of work in the abs, and now we can finally lengthen them, open them up, release that range of motion. All right. When we're done with our cat and cow, we can do our sunflowers so that we start in a wide position with the knees open. If we karate chop our knees, we can still see our big toes. So if by chance you have the knees kind of coming forward, let's shift our bodies back so that we can see our knees. We have that classic alignment of knee over ankle. Now, lots of times this is called a plie. I tend to call it a wide squat because not everybody is comfortable out this wide, especially if balance is an issue. So yes, we could be setting up behind our chair, and let's lift and lower, warming up our strength and range of motion in the lower body. We can have hands to thighs for support. For fun, we can do our reverse breathing, exhaling up and inhaling down. See if we can figure out that coordination, see how it makes us feel. This is probably my least favorite pose to do reverse breathing in, so it's just something to kind of play with. Okay. Let's take hands to chair or thighs. We're shifting our hips back. And again, let's try to find neutral here. We'll do a wide-legged sun pose, cat and cow. So we're tucking our tailbone, contracting our glutes, draw the belly up and in as we round the low back, dropping the chest, stretching the back, stretching the spot between our shoulder blades. We can tuck the chin, stretching the back of the neck. Fully exhaling, and then take as long as you need to reverse the movement, untucking the tail so that we're lengthening the inner thighs and the back of the legs, lengthening the belly without really splatting out, shining heart forward and up, remembering that we're drawing our chins back so the back of the neck is smooth, but we can take the eyes and the eyebrows up. Let's go once more each way, figure out where neutral is, that middle point, where we are honoring the natural curves in our spine without ironing them out. So we have a little curve in the low back, glutes are contracted to support the low back, and let's move through our sunflowers here. So let's actually inhale up now, hinging our hips as we exhale forward, and that exhale as we come forward is what protects our low back. So as we come forward, contracting our abdominals, the muscles of our bellies, and our glutes, the muscles of our bum, as we breathe out. Again, if you want to really pursed lip exhale, helps us to fully empty out. Let's bring it to our sun pose. So our sun pose is arms at parallel or hands on chair, hands on thigh for support. We will challenge our balance, one heel at a time. Embracing any popping or cracking. Can we let that be something that is fun in our practice? Maybe we feel joints we didn't know existed, cracking in the toes. Somewhere deep in the foot. We can keep going one at a time. Might only be a teeny tiny little lift, or even just shifting the weight forward into the toes or the ball of the foot. If we like a large range of motion, if we want to balance with both heels lifted, we can. Holding onto that neutral spine, checking in with our habit patterns in the upper body. When we add challenge in the feet, do we suddenly start to get back into our habitual patterns in the upper body? And we are in need of a rest. So let's go ahead and rest the hands. We can step the feet in a little bit closer. And again, we may be behind the chair for balance, but I like this wide-legged position for support to get into the sides of the body. We may still be in a plie if you like a lot of inner thigh strength. Rechecking with our neutral posture, soft bend in the knees. We'll take one hand down, one arm up and over, big breath in. Maybe we straighten, same leg as arm. We've done a lot of work crunching in the sides of the waist, so we pause for a few rounds of breath to loosen up hip to underarm on one side. And let's take it to the other side. Legs may be straight, a little bit of a turnout, one arm down, one arm up. We can have both legs bent or one leg straight. Sometimes the legs have a mind of their own. This is another place where we get into our habit patterns. We think we're pretty good with our mind-body connection. We think both legs are bent, and then we look down and they have other ideas. So looking at our bodies anytime we need to kind of check in, see what's going on. That's one of the benefits of practicing in front of a mirror, right? Or even if we're live on Zoom, we see ourselves and go, oh, whoops. Okay, we'll bring ourselves back through center. Let's walk our feet in. And if we are behind the chair, we can stay behind the chair, gentle feather light touch on the chair, and we'll do heel raises here in a more neutral position. So if we like, we can test out our range of motion, 1 foot at a time. Again, maybe popping or cracking going on. If we have no chair, we're kind of taking our feet for a walk. We can transfer our balance, challenge our balance, still coming from the core, breathing evenly, tall neutral spine. And then let's do both feet together if our balance allows. So our hands are ideally feather light on the chair. We're in parallel, so maybe we can fit a tennis ball or 2 tennis balls between our heels. And then we lift and slowly lower down. Engaging the muscles of our leg, letting them really hug inward, resisting gravity on the way down. If a more narrow stance is not comfortable, yes, we could be in our Tai Chi style stance, no problemo. Last one here, we'll do one more variation. So we did wide with turnout, we did narrow with no turnout. If we like to channel our inner ballerina, we can zip up between the thighs, press the heels towards one another. Actually engaging those inner thigh muscles, you may feel the abs, especially the deep internal lower abs, kick in more. Okay, so we draw the heels together to set up. Comfortable turnout, whatever comfortable means to you. Maybe the toes are pointed towards the corners of the room. And then we draw from the core. We can inhale to get ready. Exhale to lift, to draw the abs in. Remembering that inhale comes from the rib cage. We'll go a little faster on the way up, slower on the way down. So it's a quicker inhale and a slower exhale. So again, this kind of zest, uplift on the inhale. Okay, last one here. Great. All right, again, we may be seated or standing. We will do some movements of our arms with the strap. Okay, so a longer strap makes more sense. I will show you the original exercise and then you can approximate based on whatever you have. So we put the strap under one foot, and the idea is to roll this shoulder down and back with the help of our strap. So if you do not have a long strap like me, we can, if you'd like just have a short one or a circle, you can hold it with the opposite hand as this arm moves. So if you are moving your left arm, you're stabilizing with opposite hand, pulling up as we do this movement. If we can stand on it, we stand on it. We could also be holding the broomstick for a little bit of resistance or weight, or just the arm, squeezing these muscles underneath the shoulder blade to draw the shoulder towards the hip. Okay, we'll do our best with whatever we have at home. So the elbow is high. We pull up, and then we flip the palm forward while the elbow stays quite high. So elbow is roughly shoulder height. Resist that movement as we reverse it. All right, rolling down and back. Resist flipping the palm back, and then strong on the way up. We'll give it a few more, really squeeze back and down. And this one is a tricky movement to execute. Feel free to stare at your arm the whole time and make sure that we're getting rotation through the upper arm and that the elbow stays high. Okay, we'll give this arm a little breather, sweeping front and back to release. Maybe the neck wants to move. All right, so if we are seated in a chair, same thing, we can still anchor it with one foot. If we have a short strap or those little round ones, we could be using the left hand to anchor it as the right arm moves. Whatever makes sense with the props that you have. When we're ready, here we go. So we pull up, classic Pilates exercise, shoulder raise like this, but then we add this rotator cuff posture correction down and back. And like me, you may realize, oh, I put too much resistance on this. Elbow up, I can look at my arm, make sure the elbow stays high. There's rotation through the upper arm. I'm focusing on getting that shoulder blade to slide down and back. Might help to stretch the opposite hand fingers down. And I can feel, this is my injury side, right? And I think, oh, just doesn't feel like the first side. I need to be a little bit more careful with how I do it. I'm glad I can see myself in the recording. I'm like, okay, does this look right? So feel free to take any of these exercises in front of a mirror, right? Our mirrors can give us some sort of weird mental game, or they can be really helpful physical feedback. Okay, let's do one more on this side. We'll release. And we can leave that on the floor for now. We might come back to it later. Relaxing the arm. Sweeping front and back. And then anything else we feel we need to do that is in our habit patterns to loosen up. And we're ready to use our chair for a variation of what's often called the side kick series. Honestly, one of my favorite parts of Pilates is that, like a rotisserie, we always work all parts of the body. There's a lot of criticism to yoga. We spend too much time folding forward. A lot of criticism to Pilates. It's all crunches. Part of the whole repertoire is working the strength in the sides of the body. So here's what we'll do. Let's point left foot towards the chair. If we have no chair, we can use a wall or we can use our own thigh. We'll do a variation of this balance set. So the idea is that we lift our heel to be parallel-ish with hip. We can take our hand to the back of the chair so that we're balancing coming up. Hand to the seat or forearm to the seat, or like I said, hand to thigh so that we're working. Maybe we only lift 1 millimeter, but we're working the strength in the sides of the body to be here. Okay, pick your favorite. I will try to go somewhere in the middle. Our free hand can simply be on our hip to remind us to stabilize through our hip. This muscle on the side of the hip, ideally we rotate open and it points up so that the bone on the front of the hip points forward. If we're a little rolled down for the sake of balance and comfort, totally fine. All right, we work with what we have. Okay, let's lift and lower. See what a comfortable landing point is. We can point to tap the toe down and flex to lift up. Find a point that feels like, okay, I can hold this with my posture still being strong, my neck is comfortable. Maybe we like to look down. For some variety, instead of yoga feet, let's point the toe and we'll draw small circles moving one direction. Small circles moving the other direction. Let's release. And we'll do a long stretch here. Sort of like our side angle pose, we can take hand to thigh or chair, long reach up and over, feeling some length through the muscles that we were just squeezing. Big breath in. And we'll go ahead and switch sides. You can probably just turn the other way, but so that I can still face you, I'll move my chair and I'll mirror us through this one as well. So we take right toes to the chair. Remember that we can put hand on thigh, seat, back of the chair, a wall, or forearm down, whatever gives us the right level of support. And then we test out our balance, see how we're doing. Test out our range of motion. Sometimes these tiny little muscles are kind of sleepy and they do not like being woken up. And as soon as we start to move, it's like a real bite in there. They kind of go, huh. So maybe we have to pause, relax them a little bit. But when we're ready, when we find that good landing point, hand to hip, soft bend in both knees, pointing our foot, small circles one way, controlling from our core. So we could just be flopping around in space, right? Or we're circling. Might help to look at the limb that we are moving or any part of our body that we're thinking about to be better connected. Circling the opposite direction. We're lowering down and stretching the muscles that we were just working on. Long reach here. And let's repeat down on the mat. So you can feel free to stay up here with the chair. Exactly the same sequence that we just did, but if you would like to come down onto the mat with me, we will do the same thing from a kneeling position. So we'll have left hand, left knee on the mat, kicking out to the side. Whoops. Our right leg is long. Again, finding a way to do this that feels pretty good. We have a relatively neutral posture here so that we're not shifting hips back or front or weird stuff going on. We have a little bit of a side bend in our posture. That is perfectly fine. Knee under hip if we're down on the floor. Let's test out our balance like we did. We're lifting up. We can flex at the top and tap to point down. Flex at the top, tap to point down. We did a lot of work for those shoulders down and back muscles. Let's keep that going. I hope we found a good landing point. So let's come up and small circles to the front. For extra stability, we might need to really be squeezing our glutes or squeezing our abs. Pressing down through hand and foot, and then we circle the opposite way. We release, and we'll do our long stretch here. Pressing down, pressing into the hip, reaching up and over. So we've got this one more time with the right hand down. Feel free to pivot through center and face away from me. I'll move just so I can see you and you can see the front of me. So we have right hand, right knee. Left leg is long, knee under hip. Take as long as we like with these transitions and setting up from one side to the other. Making sure we're not going to kick any of our props as we do. All right, and then let's test out our balance. Flexing up, pointing down, flexing up, pointing down. And through this process, you may realize like, ooh, you're falling over, you need to readjust. That's why we do this. And then when we've got a good landing point, we point and circle the foot, small circles. Double checking, are the muscles in the front of the leg working? Trying to feel out, the muscles in the back of the leg are working. What if we feel we're really tight? We'll stretch. Let's switch directions. Lower down, and a long stretch. Our free arm up and over. Again, thinking accordion in our rib cage, or a fan, or anything else. Picturing a tree opening its leaves, any image that you can bring into your mind of spreading things open, a flower blossoming, whatever that is, that's what we're aiming for in our ribs. All right, so we could be standing or kneeling, a variation of child's or down dog. We can put our hands on the chair, we're shifting our hips back. So this can be done, of course, with our feet on the floor as well. If we're down on the mat, we're down on the mat. And for this next set, we'll be on all fours. If by chance you prefer to be up here with hands on the chair, facing the back of the chair, same idea as we move our limbs through space. If we're okay here down on the floor, we're spreading our fingers wide, pressing down into the tops of our feet for stability. And let's go for a little walk. So we inhale to get ready. And with our exhale, we're lifting opposite hand and knee, dropping down. Inhale, exhale, opposite hand and knee, dropping down. So that exhale helps us squeeze as we lift. Yes, this is an example of our reverse breathing. In yoga, we would usually inhale, giving that feeling of uplift. In Pilates, we exhale as we lift so that we can draw our abdominals inward to push the air out. And that full exhalation is part of what I love for our mood boost. If we like to make this movement bigger, we can tap front and back as we exhale. We'll give ourselves a breather. Again, we can shift our weight back with our feet on the mat and our hands on the seat or the back of the chair or down on the mat or all the way down for our typical child's pose. We've got one more here in our bellies before we flip over on our backs. Again, if you want to approximate the movement standing with hands on the chair, very similar to what we just did, you can. I'm going to move the chair out of the way finally. And if we're okay lying on our stomachs, we can. We'll do the same type of movement that we just did, opposite arm and leg, so feel free to stay all fours or with the chair. No judgment, whatever shape we need to be in, with whatever variation we need to be in, to feel our muscles really kick in and support us, right? I never want to put us in a pose where we are feeling unsupported. That's just not the point. Okay. If we have our bellies against the mat, we get a little bit of feedback for our abs. If we pull our abs away from the mat, either noticing or imagining the mat is cold and our abs are kind of shrinking away. So we can do like we just did, going for a little walk, opposite hand and foot lift. Or we can do what I do when I teach the kids. We pretend we are skydiving, opposite arm and leg lift. So we're working the muscles in the back of the hip, the back of the shoulder. That's the main idea. Again, to support our pelvis, to support our posture. If our necks get tired here on the floor, we can totally rest the forehead. And the movement keeps going. And then let's do any movement that feels good to release. So again, child's or down dog with the chair. If we're on our bellies and it's comfortable, we can windshield wipe the legs side to side. Press up and back. Let's make our way to a seated position. And from our seated, so we can do this one sitting in a chair or sitting neutral, but it's kind of a good one to get into the sides of the hips. And I say kind of because it depends on how you feel it, but let's do a mermaid variation of a stretch. So we'll take our feet over to the right side, which means we're stretching the left side of the hip, which I think is probably needed after those side leg lifts. Feeling what's going on in the left hip. It's the left arm. So the same side hip that we're stretching, it's that arm that reaches up. And we take our hand and cross the midline so we have our hand over top of our feet. Invariably, when I teach this in a group fitness setting, there's always someone who goes backwards. It's not a safety consideration. You are fine if you go backwards. But to get the length from hip to pit, is that how we could think of this? Our hand drapes over, so it's over top of our feet. Okay, we'll come back through center. We can switch sides, take our mermaid tail the other way. That might be a slow and clunky kind of transition depending on how our hips are feeling. Yes, we could be sitting with our legs in any other position. Cross-legged, extended, butterfly, it's all good. But we are lengthening through the right hip, right side of the hip, right side of the body. Our right hand crosses the midline to be over top of our feet. If you go backwards, everything's going to be okay. In fact, you could try going both directions to see which one feels better. All right, we'll come back through center. Release our hands. And let's make our way to a supine position. Yes, if we're seated, we can stay seated. Otherwise, bring it on down. We'll do twisting. So this can be done in a chair quite easily. Our variation for our chair, seated twist. Variation for our mat, often we take our arms out to T. Instead of just flopping around, let's work on a theme. So with our inhale, we feel the rib cage expand, always the option to bring our hands to our ribs. Exhale, we pull the belly in, and we let our knees windshield wipe side to side with a little bit more strength than we may normally do. We can match breath to movement. Inhale as we let the knees drop down. Exhale as we bring them up through center. We want more oomph In this position, we can inhale with our shins starting from parallel, and then taking both knees over to the side, exhaling back up through center, keeping both shoulders velcroed down onto the mat. For a more active twist, or a variation of in yoga what we call our stomach twisting pose. It's actually usually translated as stomach turning pose, and I think, I don't know that I want something to turn my stomach, so I call it stomach twisting pose. Whichever variation we're doing, once more each way. And then our passive variation, we can plant the feet wide. So if you're seated, you can use the chair for support, twisting to the right, taking the right chair to the back of, right hand to the back of the chair. If we're on the floor, we can let our knees windshield wipe to the right side. Again, arms can be at T or anywhere else that they're comfortable. Finally, letting our abdominal muscles release here. Being super soft with both the inhale and the exhale. A little bit of strength. Our next exhale brings us up through center. And then we take it the other way. Again, we use a little bit of strength to come up through center. And we'll do a variation of waterfall. If we have a strap or anything like that, it does not work so well with a broomstick, but a long strap or a TheraBand style strap can help us out. We can use nothing. So I will show us the nothing variation, drawing knees to chest, and then extending and bending our legs, flexing heels to the sky, and then the next set, we can point. Right, that's one thing that we neglect in our yoga poses often is pointing the feet. So we can do both pointing and flexing. If we have our strap, taking it to the underside of the feet, and then we don't have to have our legs work quite so hard. And I always love to say another trend that we have going on lately is lymphatics. Anything where we're doing this sort of pumping movement is good for our lymphatic system. Of course, the beauty industry hopped right on this, and everything is about lymphatics from the collarbones up. Lymphatic massage for the face, the neck, but this kind of pumping movement is good for the lymphatic system in the back of the knees and the lower body. We're using gravity to help our lymphatic system, and our circulation helps our lymphatic system as well. So just a way to appreciate our typical movement practices from a different angle. All right, we are here in our double leg stretch. So let's point the toes to the sky. We can use our strap to pull in closer or to give our lower body a break so we don't have to hold our legs so much. Enjoying the stretch down the back of the legs. And then we'll release ourselves back to knees to chest. We can release our strap, or we may like to take it up overhead again to help us knit our ribs as we move the arms overhead. So we'll do a long body or a full body stretch, pointing the toes away. Legs can be straight or bent if that's more comfortable. And then the arms come up overhead, making sure the ribs don't pop. So we knit the ribs down. We can have a strong exhale as we stretch overhead. And then let's release this pose. So we can release the strap, we can let the ribs pop up, we can bend the elbows. into a cactus pose or the hands behind the head, or sort of a diamond shape with the arm. We can relax the feet. And let's check back in with how we're doing here. Noticing any shifts or changes. Seeing what impact this movement practice has had on your breathing, your sense of well-being. Do you feel more zestful? Option to take our hands to our ribs or our bellies to completely release our abdominal muscles here. Deep belly breathing. Release the ribs. No need to force the ribs to puff out. Imagining that our lungs can drop right down to the bottom of our pelvis. Our diaphragm massaging our internal organs and our deep inner muscles as it drops down. So our diaphragm is the muscle underneath the lungs that pull them down so that they inflate. And I kind of think of it like the plow on the front of a truck, clearing everything out of the way so that the lungs have space to move. Or like the engine of a train, pulling forward so that the lungs have a smooth and easy ride. There's a lot of talk about breathing from the diaphragm, but actually if we do a lot of movements of our body, we've cleared out a lot of space for our diaphragm to move, pull down so that the lungs can drop deep down and we can get a nice easygoing breath without too much work. I hope that everybody out there feels that at this moment. Remember, you can always stay here for as long as you like. If you would like to finish our practice together, we can come to a seated position. We could also energetically finish together without going anywhere, imagining joining our minds together. We could take hands across heart center, sending appreciation to our bodies, appreciation to ourselves and our inclination to go through this practice, our follow through, saying thank you to our internal resources for being there for us so that we could spend this time together. And join hands at heart center, our namaste hands. Thank you so much for joining me this month. Thank you for trying something new. Thank you for being here. From my light to yours. Namaste.